guys, welcome to another video from the Orbital Tube channel. So in today's video we're going to be looking at this 2003 model Toyota Corolla, which is my own personal car. It's pretty crusty, has paint peel. It's not the cleanest of models, but mechanically it's been pretty good up till now. It hasn't had many major issues, so I was going to treat it to a new set of handbrake shoes, rotors and backing plates just to tidy it up a bit. So because I live in an icy area and there's a lot of salt in the roads, this car does rust a bit, so that's why we have to replace parts in the car now and again, because of that reason. So first up, we'll just remove the caliper here, and we'll just take off the two bolts holding the caliper on. As you can see there, I've just sent the wrench flying. You don't have to do that. You could hit yourself in the nuts, unless you want to really test your wrench and just see how strong it is. You know, you could fire it about the place if you want to, but... So next up then we'll just undo that second bolt. Again, just crack it loose. Hopefully it's not too tight. And you can undo those two bolts the rest of the way then by hand. Just remove them. As you can see here, the caliper, that caliper that's on there actually is only maybe 2 years old. It was a refurb, starting to rust up already. So probably a good idea to paint those at some point if I have time. So next up we'll just remove the caliper itself. We'll pry it off, and it should slide off pretty easy. You can push the piston back there a wee bit too if you want to do that. And you can always tell the mark of a good mechanic by whether they actually bother to bungee cord the caliper or not. And because I'm half-arsed, of course I just leave it sitting on the frame. So these pads aren't in too bad a nick. I'm just going to reuse them. Of course, if you took those into Toyota, they tell you needed 2 new pads, but for the sake of what we're doing here today, there's plenty of material left in those, so we'll just reuse them. So next up then, we'll use this breaker bar to break loose the 2 bolts holding on the carrier. So just because the access is limited in here, it's really useful to have a breaker bar in hand, because if you try to get an impact in there, you might struggle a wee bit with the space that's available. Especially if you're working on the car from the side, you know, rather than underneath it. So we'll just crack those 2 bolts open with the bar, and then we'll undo the bolts and get that caliper carrier off. You can see here actually a bit of red paint on the caliper carrier where somebody had added the 5 horsepower modification a few years back. But so next up we have to loosen the rotor or the disc here, depending on whether you're American or European. This disc is actually a hybrid, so it actually has a drum and a disc together. So the drum's for the handbrake and the disc is for the caliper. So I'm just giving it a few taps here, a bit of percussive maintenance just to try and loosen it, and I've loosened off the cog and through the hole there. The hole has to be at around the 6 o'clock position. So I've just realised that it's not backed off enough here, and as you can see I've just gone again with undoing it. The best way to figure out what direction to go is actually to put on the handbrake, and then the cog will only loosen in one direction, and from there you'll know what direction you need to loosen it in. Just saves you a bit of time, and then take off the handbrake again. So as you can see there, with the adjuster backed off, you can now take off the disc, and it's pretty crusty, so it's no harm that we're actually replacing the discs as we do this job. And as you can see, the backing plate itself is not in great condition there as well. As you can see, there's quite a lot of rusting around there. Just with inspection of the pads, there's not that material left, not that much material left in the pads either. So it's a good time to be in the shoes, I should say. So good time to be replacing those. So we're going to use our old friend here, the Normfest, cheap and cheerful £2.50 can of brake cleaner from Euro Car Parts. Accept nothing less. So just give this a good coating, and you can use a catch tray there just to catch all of the old stuff that drips off there if you care about your driveway. So it's really just to kill the dust and just to get it away from where you'd be breathing it in. So here's a close-up then of the shoes. As you can see, it's not a lot of material. There's actually a hole in the backing plate there up on the top left, as you can see, and it's not in good shape. So we're relying on the backing plate for these brakes to work well. So you can see there the cog that we've been adjusting and you can use that cog to either make that bolt longer or shorter. So we needed to shorten it there as we were trying to get the disc off. So you can see here the backing plate is really bad shape, it's really rusty. when you can tap the backing plate and it starts to bend, it's never a good sign. So the other thing then, that the major issue that's wrong with this is this clip that is supposed to be tight and is supposed to hold the shoes tight against the backing plate has actually pulled through from the back. So in from the back here, there's actually like a tapered region where that pin sits into, and it's basically like a nail with a large head. And if the backing plate rusts, it actually pulls straight through, and then you have nothing to lever the shoe against. So first up, we'll try and remove the two top springs here, and I lost some of my footage here, but we recommend just using a pick tool for this job to lever them off. Then next up, we just have to press down on this clip and then get something in behind the clip and then just yank it off, and that'll pull those two off. There's two of these per side. And then the little pin there slides out the back of the backing plate. That's what I was talking about when I meant it looked like a nail with a flat sort of head. Next up then, we'll do the spring down at the bottom. Again, just using a pick tool, try and wiggle the pick tool in behind it, and then use some leverage then to crack it off. So these springs might take a few goes to get, like they're not the easiest to remove, so just bear that in mind. Don't expect to get it in the first go. So then with all of that loose, we can take the two shoes apart, and as you can see, the right hand shoe here actually has a metal piece that separates both shoes, so that has to be reused. So I'll take that off. I'll have to take off the adjuster mechanism at the bottom as well, because we're going to have to reuse that as well. So this is where the handbrake cable comes into the backing plate. So the handbrake, first of all, actually, we'll just remove this piece of rust here because it's just a health hazard, because it's really sharp and rusty, and you're going to be doing any work around here, just get rid of that kind of stuff. So first up, we're going to hit it here with some WD-40 just to try and get it loose, to try and see if it'll move. This clip is a bit like it's a bit sort of like a spring-loaded clip, in that you push it through and then some little pieces toggle and expand then and hold the clip in place. So as you can see here, it's not totally stuck. You can rotate it to a certain extent, but the little clips on that plastic piece that I'm touching now, if you do it right, you should be able to clip those in and push it back out again, but I find it very difficult to do that, so I decided just to take off the other shoe just to give myself a bit more room here. So you just grab that spring like that, push it back, and then the shoe will pop off from the handbrake cable. So in at the back of the hub then, we have the 4 bolts that hold the hub, and then we also have a wheel speed sensor, or an ABS sensor here. So that also needs removed, so just get a pick tool in behind the clip on that sensor and get it out. The next up, we'll use the breaker bar just to crack those loose, and then we can use our ratchet then to take them the rest of the way. Because they're quite tight actually, those ones, because they hold the entire weight of the car and through the hub, so they have to be quite tight. So we'll loosen the bolts at the back just almost all the way, just to give them a little bit of movement so that we can sort of wiggle the hub out. And this is a trick that we're going to use here. So we're going to put the tyre back on and then just use the weight of the tyre to yank the hub out of its seat. So you'll see here, we'll take the wheel back off again. As you can see now, the hub has actually loosened from where it's seated and to the frame of the car. So next little trick that we're going to use here is one that I saw from other people online, and having a lot of difficulty with extracting the backing plate here. We're going to knock out one of the lug nuts using a hammer. And the reason that we're going to do that is we need to separate the backing plate from the hub itself. And to do that, we want to use the leverage of the hub, that face there. We want to use that leverage to be able to separate both surfaces from each other. So the easiest way to do that, just get yourself a regular bolt, something fairly beefy if you can find something just with that'll take a fairly big washer to try and spread the load a wee bit, and just take it off, add some washers to the front end, and then add some, and put it through the hub, and then add some washers and a nut to the other side then as well. So the idea here is that at this point, because you've loosened the hub, The backing plate and the hub should separate, but they don't, because they're such a tightly pressed fit. So this is basically just like a kind of like a puller tool, but it's the opposite of a puller tool. It's actually a tool that where you're pressing the backing plate away from the hub, as opposed to trying to remove the hub. So just tighten down in one location there, and then rotate the hub around and do the same again. Just tighten it down. Hold the nut steady using a spanner in behind, and then use the wrench then to tighten down the bolt against the backing plate. And that'll allow you to push it off. Some of the other guys on YouTube I've seen them knocking out more than one lug stud, which you can do, but in my case, I just thought for simplicity of reinstalling the studs again, I just thought I would rotate the position around and just do it progressively. So I've done the sort of 9 o'clock position, the 3 o'clock position, and then we're going to do the 12 o'clock position here as well. And it takes a bit of patience to do this. There's no point in rushing this, because it is an extremely tight fitting component, so it really does take quite a bit of time and patience to get them apart here. So you can see there where the bolt is contacting the backing plate, but it's just able to go past where the hub is, so that's where you get the separation. So as we tighten this down now, the two components should start to come apart, and you'll hear a bit of cracking and a bit of rust coming out of this as you do this. So you can see here that there's a bit of distance then between the hub and the backing plate, and that's exactly what you want to see. So as soon as you see a little bit of distance on one side, just follow it and continue around the rest of the hub, and do the same around the other locations here. So again, we're just taking our time, doing it nice and slowly, and just getting the pressure to separate both parts here. Interestingly, in the other manuals, in the Haynes manual and stuff like that there, they actually tell you to take it off, and you can use a hammer to hit the hub bolts from behind to remove these two. And I'd actually tried that method on the other side of the car, and it just failed miserably, even with a really big sledgehammer. Didn't work. So this is definitely the preferred method for separating these two. So as you can see, we've separated both the components now, so we can just remove the bolts in the back, and don't let the hub fall like I did. Not a good idea. So after deciding that this backing plate is going to be going in the bin anyway, I decided just to take a hacksaw to the area where the handbrake goes in and just try and wiggle that off, just to give myself a little bit more room. If you are going to reuse your backing plate, you will have to try and remove that clip without doing what I'm doing here. So it just depends on what way you're doing this job. So as you can see, I'm just wiggling that up and down, and eventually it broke off, and that was the little metal piece that was left behind of the backing plate. So see, really easy to get this off now. Just take a pair of snips and just snip around, and you'll be able to extract that from the handbrake cable clip. So here's the old backing plate, really bad condition, a lot of holes in it, and here's the new one that we got from eBay. I actually gave the backing plate a lick of Hamrite as well, just to try and give it a bit more of a lifespan, especially with all the rustiness in the country that I live in. So we'll just add the hub. The backing plate has been put on the hub there now, and the hub is pushed in to the seat and the frame of the car. So I'll just tighten those bolts up. We'll not tighten them fully yet, we'll just tighten them up to the point where they're sort of snug. And I should have mentioned, actually, before you put the backing plate on, do put the handbrake cable through the backing plate. Simply because the handbrake cable is quite a stiff cable, and it's quite hard to bend it so that you can get it into its seat in the backing plate. So do that before you put the backing plate onto the car. So next up, we're going to just try and put our lug stud back in again. We're going to use the stud off the wheel. We're going to hold it in position, and we're going to use an impact gun just to tighten it up. So as you can see here, with the pressure from the impact gun, it'll tighten right down on the stud. And there's no point in going too far with it. You just get it to a point where the lug stud is seated and tight against the back of the hub again, and pretty much that's all you need to do. With the pressure, when you tighten the alloy wheel back down again in a way, it'll create enough pressure just to tighten that down even more. So next up, we'll just add the handbrake cable back onto the shoe again. So as you can see, we just push back the spring and then we add our clip back on again. So we press down it and push down through the pin after adding the pin through from the backing plate from behind. That holds the shoe in place. So just clip it in there till you feel it sort of clicking into place. And next up we'll add the spring down at the bottom. So we'll just use our pick tool again, get in behind the front of the spring and put the pick tool into the hole where the spring is supposed to go and then just try and maneuver it into place. As you can see, it takes a few goes. Working on these springs, if you only have pick tools, it does work, but it just takes a few goes and a bit of patience to get those in. So next up here then, we're going to do the two springs up top. So you can see the metal piece that separates both shoes there, and I'm just going to wiggle the spring over onto that plate using a bit of leverage using the pick tool. So the pick tools are really good for this. You just basically guide the spring into the position that you want to go it in, wiggle it around and then extract the pick tool again, and that sort of gets the spring in where you need it. Again, might take a few goes to do this one as well. Not the most straightforward. There's a lot of tension in these springs. They're not light springs. I mean, they're for the brakes in your car, so you would expect them to be quite strong. We'll just do the same again then. For this spring, we'll just use the pick tool and try and lever it off that edge and just guide it into place. This one actually went pretty easy. Now next up we have to clean down the brake disc. So when you get these from the manufacturer, they coat them in a protective anti-corrosive oil. So you have to remove that before installing them on the car, otherwise the friction material will be contacting that oil as opposed to the bare metal. So I'll just use brake cleaner again, use it on both sides and actually use it inside the drum as well, because that the actual part of the drum inside will be in contact with the friction material too. So we've got our old friend the Normfest again. We've got a spare can. You can never have enough of this stuff. I don't know how many brake cleaner tins I have lying around. You need a lot of them. So just give that a clean inside and get the surface back to the bare metal again just before installing on the car. So next up then we'll just stick the drum back on again, and we'll have to adjust the adjuster to get the shoes to tighten against the drum. So we'll use the hole in the drum and we'll just turn it around to the 6 o'clock position, and we'll need a flashlight or a torch to actually be able to see the cog, and then we'll take a screwdriver and adjust it all the way out so that it makes contact with the drum. Then after this step then you would just back off that cog a couple of notches then to give it a little bit of movement, so that when the handbrake is off, so that the drum isn't catching. So with the handbrake on now, we'll just test that it's tight, and as you can see, yeah, we've got plenty of bite between the shoes and the drum, so we know it's well fitted. Then just to wrap up the job then, we'll stick the brake harder back on again, the caliper and the carrier. And then just to make sure that everything's set up right, we'll just give the drum some rotation just to check for any noises, any scratching noises, anything weird that could be sitting in the wrong place or something. So if all this looks good then, it's just time to take the car for a test drive and make sure that everything's okay. As always, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It helps this channel, helps me to make more content. And thanks for watching this video. This is a long one, but hopefully it was useful to you guys out there. Drop me some comments below if you have any questions.